This is the nene. The nene, the Hawaiian goose, looks a lot like the Canadian goose, just a little smaller. We're going to talk about the nene today. And we're going to talk about the raven, the Hawaiian crow. It's really a raven, a small raven, the alala. Both of these two birds are classified as endangered. And it's made for a real problem. It was a wonderful thing when they were endangered, when our hero biologists and people went out and collected the last few birds and raised them in private. But now we're caught in a strange thing because a lot of folks seem to think they should be released into the wild. And that's what there's actually 3 reports, each a half an hour, and you're about to see the third one. A photo by Jack Wolford. Here's the alala. He's small by raven standards, but a lot bigger than any crow. No, he's not a crow. Crows are irritating birds. The raven is an amazing bird. These 3 reports air every Wednesday at 5:30 on Channel 53. The first one was an introduction, a case of mistaken identity, and the proof from Captain Cook and Captain King that they were domestic animals when the Europeans first arrived, living with Hawaiians. The second video is about what the problem is when they so-called release them into the wild, when they throw them out of their homes. Why do ravens die? Who are the killers? What happened to the so-called wild environment that they seem to, some folks insist on putting these birds into, and they don't survive? What you're about to see now is why save this raven. We've got a lot of animals going extinct, but it turns out the nene and the alala have very special attributes and very special reason why they should be saved and not put into the hands of the forest, put into the hands of the people that love them and that they will love. And the reason they're so special is because they're more tame than other birds. The Hawaiians bred out the bite. Yeah. You know about that, don't you? You've been reading for decades about the wolf. And pet wolves, you can't breed out the bite. Then they got wolf dogs, half wolf, half German Shepherd. They're still kind of dangerous. You have the same ideas about pit bulls. Yeah. And today on Memorial Day on the news, a tiger just killed a trainer. Hard to breed out the bite in a tiger, too. But ravens and geese aren't exactly your best pets. What does domestication really mean? It means taming and breeding out the bite. Yes. And I had a friend who raised this little Australian shepherds. Beautiful, very intelligent little dogs. And I said, they make good pets? She said, no, not really. They bark at flies on the wall. Bark at flies on the wall? She said, yes. She says, you can't seem to breed it out of them. After many generations, they still bark at a little speck moving on the wall. Well, you see, to an Australian shepherd, that speck is either a sheep on the hillside or a wolf, and he's supposed to let the boss know right away. It's been bred into him for 100 or so or more years. Yeah, hard to breed it out, huh? So why is the nene and the alala so special? The alala is a very special raven because he is tame. He had 1,000 years of being a house pet, according to Captain Cook in 1778. Cook said in his journal, 200,000 people lived along the Kona coast of the Big Island, and, quote, the most common house pet was a large black bird. The other captains wrote about it too. You saw some of that in the first chapter. Well, bless the internet. When you go and search out the raven, Hawaiian ravens, there's ravens all over. The same with geese. So I want to show you this piece first by a man who really knows his animal behavior and has a pet raven. And check this out, huh? Okay, this is Peter Kane. He trains all kinds of animals. It's about 2.5 minutes. You can get it on YouTube. Hear what he has to say about keeping a raven as a pet. This is Sam. Ravens are big. Yep. Here's what he has to say about Sam.
I found it's better just to leave the tub out wherever. Like I have one whole room that has nothing in it and at my house, and Sam can go up there and take a bath. It's a mess, I'm telling you. Or in the studio, like I put the tub of water on top of a crate. That's that white tub back there. You know, like that dish tub? He gets in it and causes a huge mess. The idea of having a pet raven sounds good to a lot of people. But a lot of ravens, they never end up leaving the cage because the raven bites. And they will. He'll bite. Are you kidding me? The claws, too. The claws hurt. They hurt. That's a very large bird. It's like, you know, it hurts. Even a small bird like a cockatoo, something like that, you have it on your hand, it's going to claw you and it's going to grab on real tough. They can cause you to bleed just with their claws. Their beak, too. It's the idea of having the pet raven that people like. It's when you get it, you'll find out that it's a lot of animal and probably not appropriate for most people. You'd really have to be a bird person, and you should be a bird person that has a lot of experience with other species. This is one of the more difficult species to deal with. Parrots aren't easy either. Don't think it's going to go well having a parrot. If you want to try bird, I have my pet pigeon, Remy, my pigeon wife. She's awesome. Try something smaller like that. They're just as smart. This notion that the smart animal is the cool animal to have. No, my dog Ike, he's a big dummy. He makes for a great pet. Having the super smart animal is not that easy. It isn't. It requires a lot. So just keep that in mind. It's not, raven or crow is not a pet for most people. It isn't going to go well. The raven's going to bite the person, and then all of a sudden, the raven will be in a cage for the rest of its life. So, get bit by a smaller bird. Get bit by a pigeon. See if you can handle a pigeon. Can you handle a pigeon? There you go. Then maybe consider it.
So ravens need a bath every day. Big tub of water. Here's some more Peter Kane wisdom on his pet raven, Sam.
My raven likes sharp objects. He does. And my father was a collector. He collected handguns and he also collected knives. And when I was looking at the knife collection that my dad left me, they're mostly just small pocket knives. That's what he collected. But he had a few longer knives, and he had this monstrosity in the collection. And this is a Buck Mountain Man. There were 300 of them produced in 1981. Sam went right for it. He was trying to pick it up and fly away with it. If you have a raven, you have to raven-proof your house. It doesn't matter how much you want the bird to fly around. It's about making sure that the bird doesn't get hurt. So when the bird is 2 years or under, it depends on the bird, but you cage them heavily, sort of like a dog. If you leave the house, you put the bird up into the cage so that they don't get into any problems. And even though that Sam's like 9 years old, I wouldn't leave this out for him. This must be locked up. You know, it's like if you have a family, if you have kids and you have a handgun, you would not leave that handgun any place that the child could find it. The same is true with the raven and shit like this. You know, he's going to play with this. I guarantee you, if this drops on your foot, it's going in your foot. This is seriously weighs like 2.5 pounds or something. Keep the knives away from the raven. Seriously. And the matches. Don't underestimate your raven. If you have a pet raven, Make sure that your medicine cabinet is locked up. They might, eat your Lipitor.
Sam loves it.
Another man who kept a raven said it's like a flying toddler with a steak knife. Ravens are not easy. Here's a little more from Peter Kane.
Person was saying that they have a crow, a pet crow, which I hope it's an African species, and they're gonna get a pineapple conure so that their crow can have a friend. This is a pineapple conure, okay? You take away the feathers, it's about the size of a mouse. This bird, this pineapple conure, stays in my bathroom if I'm not home. This is my friend's bird, and I don't want the bird to get hurt. This would be considered food for Sam or a crow. This bird is too small and it's inappropriate to be flying around my apartment. And when it came here, it came out of the cage. I put it in a $1,500 animal environment cage, stainless steel cage. I opened the door and it flew out, and it was fucking with Sam the Raven. And it was fucking with my cat. And my cat at one point, who's never killed anything, walked off with Bijou in his mouth. And I was like, I gotta clip his wings, because the fast-moving little bird that's about the size of a large hummingbird is exciting the predators, okay? This bird was dive bombing Sam. These are precocious little birds, and they can fly pretty good. But can this bird fly, this small bird fly as good as Sam the Raven? No, it cannot. Sam the Raven, this large bird, can fly around this room. They can fly upside down and shit. Would I feel comfortable having this size bird as a pet? No, I wouldn't. You're an unrealistic person, because you see pigeons walking around Sam the Raven and Sam the Raven leaving them alone. Pigeons are larger. They're not as tiny as this bird. This bird probably weighs 50 grams or something. You see what Sam just did? You said your crow is real social, right? To you. You're describing it being social to you. What makes you think that if you went and got a mouse at the pet store, that your crow isn't going to try and kill it? It's a food source. That's a crow. You get a pineapple conure and you're having unrealistic expectations. This is your second bird, and you're going to get a hookbill because you think that the hookbill is going to be friends with your raven. Well, that's not going to happen, or your crow. That's not going to happen. They're not going to be best friends, and you're very unrealistic.
Okay, final word on keeping a raven as a pet.
A lot of people have no idea what it's like living with a raven, and I think a lot of ravens end up as pets because of this. And the only thing that I could compare it to is like maybe if you lived with like somebody with like severe narcissism, it's all about Sam. It doesn't, or maybe like a sociopath or psychopath. It's about Sam, It really is. It's about him like kind of entertaining himself, and that's fine. I love the guy, But you have to understand, like, he goes through these phases where he tortures me. That's what they're sort of he's into, is sort of torturing. And this was talked about the Jimmy Stewart movie, or actually it's the Frank Capra, I think. See, the Frank Capra, It's a Wonderful Life. I've heard Jimmy Stewart talking about the raven that was on set, and the raven on set just tortured Jimmy. Just like singled him out and just tortured him. So, that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with an animal that's like, it's got a lot of stuff upstairs, and it really isn't. A lot of times the stuff that they do isn't cute, so it's going to be frustrating at times if you're going to live with a raven. Do you understand? Like he'll take my my wallet, and he's looking for my driver's license. And then he takes the driver's license and tries to destroy it. So, and there's physical things too. You saw him going at my shoulder. He went, this week, and he's done this before throughout, the years I've lived with him, but like, he'll like swoop down on me like I'm taking the dogs out. And so for like 2 days, each time I bend over to put a leash on a dog, here comes Sam to claw me in the back. Do you understand? This is a big bird. That can hurt. That can hurt. If you're afraid of getting bit or anything like that, don't get a raven. Seriously. And if you think that you can be sort of just passive with the raven, you have to be. You can't give him a physical correction, but you can certainly tell the raven when it's fucking up. You know, but you can't give it a physical correction. It's a bird. There's no way to do it. So they understand tone and everything, and he knows, and that's an issue too, is because he gets a kick out of it. Like, look at what I did, you know? I made Peter crazy. He makes me crazy at times. That's what it's like living with a raven. You're living with, you know, comparable to like a sociopath or psychopath. You know? I like living with the psychopath. I love Sam. I love him to death, but at times it's frustrating. So if you're thinking about getting a raven, think twice. Really know and understand what you're getting into. This isn't my first corvid. You know, I own other birds too. So you should have a lot of bird experience if you're going to consider getting a raven or a crow.
Now remember, we're talking about the common raven, the European raven, not the ala. Let's talk about geese. Everybody knows and has seen stories of the goose attack. Yes. And so here on the internet, are geese good pets? Good question. Are they? What they say here are geese are typically very aggressive and do not make good pets. If raised with a lot of human interaction, ducks make good pets. I definitely recommend a duck if you have room for it. But with a raven, certain breeds of ravens are not as bad as others, and it isn't easy. Ravens eat grass. They need water, just like the ala, and they can be very aggressive, especially a big male goose. I had a friend who lived up in the Kona hillside. He had a lot of dogs. He had a big vegetable farm. He had a dog for the chicken coop, a dog for the truck, a dog for the back door, a dog for the front door. He lost his big German Shepherd and wanted to replace him. And somehow somebody suggested he get a goose. He got two big white geese. And they grew up to big geese really fast. And they took over all the dogs, and nobody stepped over the property line without the goose telling everybody and rushing over there to confront the intruder. Geese make great guard animals. Now this author has a cautionary note too, and said, here there's 3 geese breeds, the Toulouse, the American Buff, and the Pilgrim, as these breeds are considered to be good pets. They're not aggressive like so many other geese. And if you think you're gonna have a pet goose, well, females are less likely to fight with one another, and they make a better option as pets. You're going to need housing, and 1 square meter per bird at least, and lots of grass. Geese eat rats, and rats eat little geese, and coyotes and dogs eat geese, and a large pen with soft green grass is necessary if you want to keep geese. So it's not easy. They need a swimming area, lots of grass, a lot of animals will try to knock off the little ones, but you could try. Okay, here's some nenes. This is the Waikoloa golf course. I've been up there to see them. They're very tame. They come right over to you. In fact, all of the birds, some of the folks that do this work are touting how the successful reintroduction of the nene into the wild. No, it's not in the wild. They just found some golf courses with all the grass they could have and some ponds to bathe in and plenty of room to see predators. And the golf courses don't allow rats and gophers and cats and mongooses on their golf course, do they? Good place for a nene. This is one gets me. Geese, 250 geese at Volcanoes National Park. This article in 2015 said there were 30 nenes around, and now there's 2,000 statewide because careful breeding, environmental improvements. Golf courses are already there. So these guys, they found a little home over there at Volcanoes. The trouble is the guys at Volcano wouldn't feed them. Oh, they're endangered. Half of the fuck died. Yeah, because they're on the endangered species list, huh? You can't feed them. They're going to try to fence an area off for them. Special, but they probably still won't feed them. Here's some birds foraging for Olelo berries. I love Olelo berries myself. And here's some guys that are going to string some wire and try to keep predators away. They spend a lot of money in strange ways, except, to take them into their yard and feed them. Something fishy's going on here, folks. Here you are at the Hilton Waikoloa Village, huge complex. Look at all the green grass. And you know what? Right here, they have a nene enclosure. There it is. See the little nene? Actually, the nene can get out, and they go back in. Maybe they entice them in with some kind of food. But here the hotel is slyly keeping some nene, even though it's an endangered species. Yeah, these are the kind of folks that are going to save the species. A little more on the goose. This is called the Year of the Gray-Lag Goose. Konrad Lorenz is probably the foremost animal behaviorist in the world. And there he is, walking along a path with his goose companions. Wonderful book, lots of photographs. At the end of the book, he says, next to the dog, the goose is man's best friend. So a goose is very companionable, a real good friend to mankind, just like the raven. Here, let's quote Dr. Lorenz. Here he says, of the many animal species relatively familiar to most of us, there's only one whose behavior has a greater attraction for humans than that of the gray-lag goose, the dog. He said, my father, who was a great dog lover, paid his greatest tribute to the geese when he once said, after the dog, the gray-lag goose is the most suitable animal for association with human beings. Of course, that applies to other wild goose species as well. But my father was familiar only with the gray-lag goose. Our nene is very similar to the Canadian goose. The geese have striking parallels with human behavior. They mate for life. They cheat on their mates. There are even some gay geese that lift up the king of the goose tribe. There's all kinds of anthropomorphism to say. The geese are fascinating. Look, folks, Hawaii was all about birds, covered in birds before Hawaiians got here. There were more science papers written on Hawaii and evolution than the Galapagos. The famous honey creepers, one little pair of small birds, or the tree snails. Hawaiians were bird experts, yes. And out of all the birds that went extinct soon after they arrived with the pig and the dog and the rat, they picked two birds, a goose for their yard, a raven for the house. Now global warming has started and many species will go extinct. We're going to have to triage a little bit. Which species should we save? The raven and goose were hand-picked by bird experts, raised and tamed for 1,000 years. 1,000 years they took the bite out of these two birds. The ala is not at all like those common ravens. After 1,000 years of being in Hawaiian houses and Hawaiian halei's, they took the bite out. The same with the nene. They're wonderfully peaceful little geese, much better than all the wild goose stories you hear. So we got geese and ravens all over the world, but only the Hawaiian goose and the Hawaiian raven are totally domesticated, and they took the bite out just right for human companions. They are not wild birds. The few remaining were wild because all the Hawaiians that had them in their homes, all the Hawaiians died off of the white man's disease. But it's a case of mistaken identities. These are domestic pets. 1,000 years of domestication, domesticity. Well, they took the bite out. These are lovely companions from raven species and goose species. So what's the answer to this terrible problem? We have confined these two birds and we're throwing them out in the forest thinking they're wild. Mistaken identity. And there's no more wild left. The wild these birds came from was the inside of Hawaiian houses in their yard. The answer is these experts, these wonderful heroes that saved these two species, have to turn a little bit and train people and birds to go back to the golf course, to the hotels, to the Hawaiian institutions, to people who are bird experts. Put these birds back in the hands of humanity. That's where they've been for 1,000 years. Our very best friends. Yes. Now you've heard these guys aren't easy to keep, ravens, or the other corvids, the crows, irritating, magpies. Minor birds are corvus. They can all talk. They all steal things. They all make mischief. They all resist taming. Yes. Except those the Hawaiians tamed for us. Hawaiians not only picked the two perfect birds for man's companion, but they spent 1,000 years taking out the bite just for us. There's a good law. It saved the species, but now it's turned bad and it's harming these species. The experts have to get into training folks and birds to get them into the hands of humanity. Good luck, fellas. Remember, the alala is tame, no bite, a wonderful raven.